All right, happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen, but especially to men, because today is for you. I want to tell you guys why you absolutely must stop watching pornography, because it is so obviously a weapon of mass destruction, spiritual destruction, and blackmail, a tool for blackmail. So we have more coming out about Diddy, Kim Porter. People have long held the suspicion that he maybe killed her, plus some videos that are surfacing of Justin Bieber at a Diddy party, and they are horrific. I'm talking truly and utterly horrific. Plus, and appropriately, or rather inappropriately, RFK Jr. is in the news for having carried on a sexting affair with a reporter at New York Magazine. And we have the Republican Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, who has been unmasked as a frequent commenter on a porn website dating back to 2012. So lots to discuss. That's what we have coming up today on Candace. All right, so here's my conspiracy theory, another one. I think porn websites have been purposefully created as tools of entrapment. I think they are creating an entire log of who everybody is. In the event that somebody becomes powerful in their life, then they have all of these porn websites that you visited. I truly think this, especially people who think their data is safe and they're constantly online. You can see how these websites like Pornhub are encouraging people to look at more frequent and also more disturbing types of porn. Essentially, they exist to pervert your tastes. And then I think people become more and more perverted. They hit weird links. And then in the background, you have people that are collecting that data so that if you ever make it in life, they can go, oh, but we caught you looking at this kind of porn. Now we control you. No matter what you think, I think we can all acknowledge now that pornography is a weapon of mass spiritual and political control. I don't care. Everyone got mad at me when I said months ago, ban porn. That's what I believe. It should be banned. And I believe that because I've looked into the history of it. Here's the reality. You can quite literally become a slave to your sin. A man has as many masters as he has vices. By the way, I wish I could take credit for that expression, but that actually came from St. Augustine in his book, City of God. He wrote, quote, "A good man, though a slave, is free, but a wicked man, though a king, is a slave, for he serves as many masters as he has vices." Think about that. If you have a vice and you think you're in control of that vice, you're really not. That vice is actually in control of you. And that is mentioned, St. Augustine's words is mentioned in this book that I'm holding. I think it's required reading for all men. It really looks into the history of pornography in our society. That's a book by Catholic author Dr. E. Michael Jones, and it's entitled Libido Dominandi, Sexual Liberation and Political Control. As I said, he traces how we arrived at this incredibly pornographic society that we live in today. I mean, do you even recognize everything is softcore porn? If you're on Instagram, if you're watching a woman and she's selling a Gucci bag, for whatever reason, she has to be naked. Have you ever asked yourself why? Why must she be naked in order to sell me this Gucci bag? Why must she have her boobs out in order to tell me to buy this perfume? And then if you explore your own mentality and you are one of the people that's going, oh my gosh, Candace, how could you say this about pornography? If you have that instant reaction, let me ask you this question. Who taught you that watching porn was a sign of freedom? Who taught you that nudity and pornography were expressions of freedom? Thinking about women and feminism, and they've got their boobs out when they're protesting. Who taught them that that was an expression of freedom? Really pause and think. When I paused and I thought about that, I went back to my high school health class, and I remember quite literally learning, as in it was like an answer to a test, that watching a little bit of pornography was healthy. I'm not kidding. We learned this in school, that watching a little bit of pornography is healthy. I can't even imagine what the kids are learning today. It's a tool for education, as if that's supposed to be the natural way that men and women come together to have sex. Well, this book by E. Michael Jones offers the even darker history. And of course, it somehow brings us right back to the very perverted psychoanalytic community, the people who love Freud. Obviously, we're talking about sexualized children. If you're a person that believes Freud was a father of modern psychology, then you should ask a lot of questions about what modern psychology is and what its aims are. And I want to tell you guys this, you have not been liberated sexually. When you look around, you see everybody and they've got their boobs out, and girls that are selling their bodies on the internet, and women that are convinced that they're models when in reality they are kind of just prostitutes selling their bodies to make money, and convinced that they're somehow more glamorous because they're doing it within the pages of Vogue. Yeah, all of those people have been intentionally enslaved by pornography. But the question is, to what end? Well, as I told you, I think powerful people are being blackmailed, and I think they're being blackmailed all over the world. And I'm talking from royals to basketball and football players to singers to politicians to bankers, you name it, because pleasure is now the drug. Lust is the tool for domination, exactly what this book is about. And there has been no greater example of that recently than the Diddy case, which follows another explosive development yesterday. Now, let me tell you, it's been long suspected since it happened, since she died in, I would say, rather mysterious circumstances, that Diddy had something to do with the death of his ex-partner and the mother to his children, a woman named Kim Porter. Now, what happened was she mysteriously died of pneumonia at the age of 47. Not the typical way that a 47-year-old goes out, especially just when they are about to publish a tell-all book on their very famous ex, Diddy. But that's what happened to Kim. She died of pneumonia at the age of 47 years old. Well, guess what? It was just announced yesterday that Kim Porter's book is being published. It's a 60-page book entitled Kim's Lost Words. It claims to be a collection of the diaries of Kim Porter, the mother of Diddy's children, and it was leaked by her friends. Now, the person who's publishing it is saying that he received a thumbnail from one of the friends who was very scared, and it is heavily implied they believe that Diddy had something to do with her death. In the book, Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the sex tapes that Diddy made of himself having sex with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star who went on to become a household name. Porter alleges that when she discovered those videotapes of Sean and his sexual encounters in the bedroom in this vault, she made copies of them as protection for herself. Realized that this is a very dangerous situation. I'm going to make copies for protection for myself, and included it as a part of her plan to leave him. But the memoir says that when she watched back the tapes, she was so shocked because there were things, quote, some of the tapes had things I would have never expected. The gay parties are one thing, but the young boys, like the two hip hop stars formerly managed by Diddy and the then 18-year-old pop star, I would have never known. The book publisher is claiming that it was the friends that gave him this thumbnail, the friends that provided this memoir. The friends also provided copies of these alleged sex tapes so that he knew that it was legitimate. And the final entry of the memoir from Kim Porter, before she mysteriously got pneumonia and didn't survive it as a 47-year-old, is her dramatically telling her friends, quote, he got me, and then calling 911. So this is getting very interesting. And what has come on the heels of this is people unearthing videos of Justin Bieber at Diddy parties. Now, Justin Bieber was obviously extremely young when he entered the industry, extremely innocent when he entered the industry, an industry that he did not quite understand as a boy who just knew how to sing and play the guitar and just did both of those things on YouTube. And then he was scooped up, and suddenly he was a part of people like Diddy going after him and saying, hey, man, why don't you pick up my phone calls? There's actually a video of that. Diddy and Justin Bieber looks to be like 15 years old and said, why aren't you picking up my phone calls? And he's like, oh, I know you were trying to contact me through people and I don't have your number. And the next thing we know, Justin is at Diddy's parties. And in this one video, it looks like whatever Justin is doing, and I'm not going to show it out of just respect for the fact that I truly believe that Justin Bieber is a victim. But whatever he is doing in this video with Trey Songz and Odell Beckham Jr. looks highly suspicious. I can show you a still from that video because I think the relevant part is Justin Bieber is not sober. He is clearly very heavily under the influence at this party. And if you remember that lawsuit that the producer Rodney dropped against Diddy, he said that unbeknownst to all of these people, they were being drugged at Diddy's parties, that they were pouring out the liquor bottles and replacing it with other drugs. He kept speaking about this pink drug, this mix, this cocktail of cocaine and MDMA, and that people that think they're just drinking vodka or just drinking water are actually all being drugged. And then once they're drugged, they do very vulnerable things. It has long been suspected that the person that people are now putting the dots together in Kim Porter's allegations that Diddy had under his thumb was Justin Bieber, and that he may have done some inappropriate things with him. And what I will say is that this very much fits the narrative. You know, we saw tons of videos of Justin Bieber. When he got together with Hailey, he was crying a lot outside of churches. He was finding his way back to God, but he was having a lot of emotional breakdowns. And what I sensed from those public emotional breakdowns, and only public obviously because the press was following him, was that he was coming to terms with the fact that he had been engaged in darkness unwillingly. And Justin Bieber probably has a lot of shame about that. He probably feels shame, first and foremost, as a man, as a husband, and as someone who has successfully created a new life for himself with his wife, Hailey Bieber. And so what I want to say to Justin Bieber and to everybody that's following the situation is that Justin Bieber is a victim. I was horrified when I saw this, not because of the idea that Justin Bieber would be engaged in these sorts of things at these parties, but because I understood that this was a kid who was intentionally targeted by Diddy, as the videos show, told that he wants to party with him. He makes it clear that Diddy is trying to contact him through people. And then he finally subjects himself and agrees to give his number. And then we saw an entirely different Justin Bieber. We saw Justin Bieber who was always wearing sunglasses, who was partying, who was very obviously involved in drugs. He spoke at length about his addiction. And Justin Bieber didn't do that to himself. Like I said, Justin Bieber was, in my view, a child victim. And as these videos are circulating on the internet, I want to make sure people remember that and give him the grace as someone who has somehow survived this, turned to family, turned to faith, and is still very much struggling with all of this. For people to give him the grace and the courage and the prayers to hopefully one day find within himself the strength to speak out about what happened. Anyways, it seems to be that it is all falling down in Hollywood. There are tons of people who should be called out, people who weren't young like Justin Bieber, people like LeBron James, who has been outwardly speaking about how great Diddy parties are, traveling around with Diddy. This person is supposed to be the king. I'm waiting for the king to come out and to condemn this, to condemn what we all know now is a reality. They say that Diddy is on suicide watch, by the way. That is the latest update, that he might kill himself because he is in this cell. I beg to differ. As I said, I believe that this was an operation, that Diddy was not at the top of this operation, and that they are going to be very careful in how they handle him, because just like Kim Porter kept videos in order to protect herself, I am certain that Diddy similarly kept many videos of the record label executives that were allegedly involved in these parties as well, as protection for himself. We will continue to monitor that story, but I do encourage everybody to pray for Justin Bieber. All right, guys, I want to take a quick second here to remind you about 7 Weeks Coffee. You're already drinking coffee, and 7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. Why are they called 7 Weeks Coffee? Well, because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean, and it's the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across the country. They have raised over $500,000 for these centers and have saved over 5,000 lives by providing free ultrasounds and other resources to mothers that are in need. Now let me tell you about their coffee, because I'm very, very particular about what I put into my body. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, and low acid. It's also organically farmed, so it truly checks all the boxes. Exclusively for my listeners, if you go to 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace, you'll get up to 25% off your order. Remember that your order will directly help support a network of over 900 pro-life organizations across the U.S. That's 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace for up to 25% off your order. All right, guys. So my unofficial correspondent, Ian Carroll, he's the guy that's on TikTok who does all of these deep dives. Very fun account for you to be following. We'll definitely include him in the links in the description here. So back in 2018, you may not remember this. I certainly did not remember this until Ian Carroll dug this up, but there was a shooting by a man named Jonathan Oddi at the Trump National Doral Hotel in Miami, okay? And this shooting is back in the news, like I said, because Ian Carroll has dug it up. And I'm going to tell you why this is now a very relevant shooting that happened in the past. But first, I'm going to let Ian jog your memory about what exactly took place that day. Take a listen.
This is from back in 2018, and it's sped up, and there's a couple places where the time lapses, and I won't show you the whole thing. But basically, this guy, Jonathan Oddi, walks in with a gun. Somewhere it just time lapsed. He's got a giant American flag. He drapes it all across the counter. Pulls down the chandelier, he said. He shoots some rounds at the ceiling, and then he basically just stands there and waits for police to come. He smashes some for apparently no reason, like just committing crimes for the sake of committing crimes, apparently. And then he just stands around with a gun, and now the cops are outside, and he's like kind of giving up and surrendering, but maybe they're not realizing it or accepting it. So then he pulls out a gun, starts shooting at them, doesn't hit any of them as far as I'm aware. He runs out of bullets or something. Not sure what happens exactly, but at a certain point, he decides it's time to book it.
Okay, so why is Ian digging up this old shooting? Well, that man, Jonathan Oddi, had a very interesting interview with the police thereafter. And we were told at the time that he was just a madman who was crazy because he was saying some pretty insane things, at least relative to 2018. Like I said, just at the time, they were insane. He said that he was a sex slave to Diddy and his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, that he was their sex slave and he had to have sex with them and other people, that he attended all of these drug-fueled parties. He then claimed that he was paid off by Diddy. And it's worth noting that Jonathan Oddi used to be a porn actor and a male stripper. And he claimed in that interview that he settled with Diddy for $1.25 million. Now, interestingly enough, NBC Miami investigators were able to determine some really rather suspicious financial facts about Jonathan Oddi, like the fact that when he divorced his wife back in 2014, he had a declared net worth of negative $1,800, and he was making just $2,000 a month as a self-employed fitness trainer. But less than a month after his divorce, he apparently fell into some money, a lot of money, because he bought 5 properties over the course of a 2-month period, for which he paid $765,000 cash. So I want to be clear, that's quite suspicious. Where was he getting all that money from? Maybe he was telling the truth about being paid off by Diddy. He also claimed that there was an assassination attempt that was being planned for Donald Trump. He spoke about the Black Illuminati, and there's more, okay? He claimed, as he's speaking more about these Diddy parties and speaking about drugs, that there was a quote-unquote hip-hop agenda. Take a listen carefully to what he says here.
The hip-hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. You need to inform the DEA. They move all the dope, on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs,
by DEA, inside the United States. Okay, they move what's called high-grade powder MDMA. They move cocaine, and they move liquid cocaine in the bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine, I've drank it myself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good. He drinks it all the time. Alright, he calls it G-juice, but it's liquid cocaine.
So just to slow that down for you in case that audio wasn't clear for you, what he is saying is that the hip-hop agenda is essentially to move drugs into the United States, to use these hip-hop stars to move drugs onto their private planes, and those private planes are intentionally not checked by the Border and Custom Control, and that they're moving things like liquid cocaine, which he says Diddy refers to as Tucci, which is cocaine mixed with MDMA. Now, that's from 2018. When Lil Rod dropped his lawsuit against Diddy, he spoke about this pink cocaine, this liquid cocaine that they were replacing in all of the bottles. So people were coming over, like I just said in the monologue, and were thinking they were having a regular drink at Diddy's house, but in reality, they were being drugged. And you've got the MDMA effects plus cocaine. It's also been known that Tucci is mixed with other psychostimulants. So just imagine why it is, perhaps, that LeBron James says that Diddy has the absolute best parties. This guy was saying that then, that our government is somehow involved in moving this stuff into America. Now, why is that very easy to believe? Well, because our government has been involved in moving drugs for a very long time. Now, I know there are people out there that really love to watch a good Netflix show and to believe that the DEA was established because we had to stomp out all of these Mexican cartels. But the reality is that we had to stomp out these cartels because we are the cartel. Okay, we are the cartel. The most successful drug cartel in the entire world is right here in America because they partnered with the government. Okay, you've got the drug makers that are partnered with the government, that are partnered with the agencies, and the only time that they go down to stomp out a drug dealer down in the South is really when that drug dealer is on their turf. So that's been a fact. We have known that the CIA has been involved in various drug running operations. And so it begs the question, when you put this all together and you think about there have been so many, by the way, so many rappers that have been caught with tons of drugs on their planes. Is this a Fed operation? And my instincts tell me absolutely, this is a Fed operation. It always has been a Fed operation, that Hollywood is creating false idols, that gangster rap is a homosexual affair between the feds finding homosexuals in prison. So there's a direct prison music pipeline and cutting them deals to encourage them to make rap, which is filth, to get kids on the street addicted to drugs, addicted to gang banging, and then to guarantee themselves an influx of people that are in the prisons that they own. But I don't know. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but looking back at that man's tape and what he also said about Tupac, and he's like, yeah, Tupac's alive. He's in Cuba. I think he said they gave him a nose job and put him in Cuba. I don't know, but it's worth realizing that everything that he said that sounded crazy, too much of it has been fact-checked true into the future. Very bizarre, and I just encourage you guys to remember that Hollywood is demonic, okay? It is created as the new Babylon, and everything that they are doing is to try to encourage you to worship those celestial stars. They're getting you to believe that these people like Diddy and Jay-Z and whoever are so cool and admirable, when in reality, in my view, they are all agents of the government, which is why it is that they all have the exact same political opinion. Don't you find that weird? Like when I think about like Jay-Z and Beyonce, and these are more names that are coming up as people are starting to prod this narrative around Diddy, I'm just like, how has there never been a time where Beyonce on any subject has disagreed with the government? Like if there wasn't like on the trans stuff, like they couldn't be like, oh no, we really don't agree with that. Isn't that a little bit suspicious? Like everything. And if you don't believe that they are creating stars, like quite literally like choosing and getting people to be focused on following certain people, do yourself a favor and walk into like Barnes and Noble. Everything is Taylor Swift. When you sign up to Instagram, you are fed, like, here's the people that you should follow, Beyonce and Taylor Swift, okay? Your tastes are being set for you. That's all that I'm going to say. And I do believe that there is a very dark force that we are going to be learning a lot more about in the near future, about how Hollywood has been working, how it has been working, by the way, since the very beginning, since the dawn of Hollywood. It's always been dark. All right, guys, I'm going to take a brief moment here but before we get into this next story to tell you about Field of Greens. A medical test can reveal your body's biological age, which can show if you're aging prematurely. Better nutrition has been shown to reverse one's bio-age. My hope of living longer and healthier is why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is an organic superfood fruit and vegetable drink. Unlike any other, it is serious nutrition. Listen to this. Field of Greens was approved for a university study that doctors believe may lower your body's biological age. That generally means better health. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and immune system. Only Field of Greens is backed by this better health promise. At your next physical or checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health, or you'll get your money back. Join me in better health with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code Candace. That's promo code Candace at fieldofgreens.com. Again, fieldofgreens.com, promo code Candace. Okay, so Mark Robinson. Be very clear here. I am a fan of Mark Robinson. I've met him. He is energetic. He is kind. And I just don't have any problems with Mark Robinson. I'm covering this because it's a news item and it's an important thing as we continue to discuss this idea of sexual liberation as a form of control. And I believe that the reason why they are indoctrinating, especially young boys who are, and I keep saying boys, by the way, I know some girls are going, girls watch porn too. It's not the same because men are biologically wired different. And so that's not to suggest that women can't also have sex addiction or can't also become porn addicts. What I'm simply saying is that men are literally wired where if they are seeing nudity everywhere, it is doing something to them, and more likely to do much more to them, much more damage to them than it would do to a woman. I think we can all agree on that, right? And so when I see these stories, I know how intentional this is, that when people get into politics, suddenly people start digging up to see if they have old porn handles. And that's exactly what has happened here with Mark Robinson. So I guess 2012, what you're talking about, like 12 years ago, the CNN did an investigation. Who knows why they're doing this? Literally, probably just plugging the names of people that they hate in to see if they can find something on them. And they produced a report which it suggests that they are saying it is verified that Mark made a series of inflammatory comments on a porn website board more than a decade ago, in which he referred to himself as a black Nazi and expressed support for reinstating slavery. And despite the fact that he stands very strong against the trans lobby, they said that he left a note saying that he enjoyed watching trans porn, and that having reviewed these archived messages found that he referred to himself as a perv. And he is completely denying, I should say, that he made these entries. They are standing by their report that this is his username, and they went deep into how they were able to match him through a bunch of biographical details and shared email addresses. So here's what I'm going to say. They obviously are feeling very confident in this report, because if they were wrong here, they would be facing a major lawsuit, right? And of course, no person is going to want to admit that they were making comments on a porn website 12 years ago. And I am bringing this again to your attention because I am telling men that this is the way forward, that this is not about your liberation, but they are collecting data on you. They are creating files on you, because if one day you become, maybe you're just a guy, a chief at Goldman Sachs, maybe you're making some good money, maybe you become a singer who strikes it big like Justin Bieber, maybe you become a lieutenant governor because you decide that you want to run for office and you're really good at public speaking like Mark Robinson. This is a tool of control, because that is what lust is about, right? They are trying to get you to constantly live this life of lust, to enjoy these moments, to abandon your rationale and to fully live within your body and to enjoy momentary pleasure. I mean, why do you think it is that MDMA is the drug of choice for Diddy, allegedly, when he's drugging all these people at parties? When they're filling up these bottles, they're putting a mixture of cocaine and ecstasy. Right? What is ecstasy? It's supposed to encourage you to constantly feel in the moment, abandon your logic and just feel. And I just hope that with all of these stories coming out, men are starting to wake up to that there is a weapon that is being used on you, and that you do the due diligence, that you look into it, that you educate yourself about the history of pornography in this country and beyond it, way before. We're talking about, 16th, 17th century, when they started realizing that you could render a population weak by offering them nudity. That they realized that it removed people from their logical brain and made them much more impulsive. I do believe that our men are under spiritual attack, and I know that spiritual attack is intentional. And any man that is defending pornography or encouraging you to watch pornography is your enemy. That's what I want men to know. They are your enemy, and what they seek to do is to weaken you. Let's go to the strip club. That is a desire to weaken you as a man, not to make you feel more like a man. All right, guys, as I said, Robinson has been denying that, so I'm going to park that aside and we'll allow that story to continue to develop, but I think it's an important one, as is this next one regarding RFK Jr. I mean, it really just men, when it comes to this impulse, really realizing that no matter how high you climb, this is something that men deal with. So RFK Jr. has been caught in a sexting scandal with Olivia Nuzzi. Now, I'll tell you, just going back, RFK Jr.'s love life has been a complete disaster. He is, in fact, married right now to an actress named Cheryl Hines, and he's been married to her for 10 years. You might recognize her from Curb Your Enthusiasm. They look quite happy. Olivia Nuzzi, on the other hand, is a 31-year-old political reporter who was engaged, by the way, to another journalist named Ryan Lizza. So she was engaged, and then she was sent to work on a profile piece for RFK Jr., which ended up being published at the end of last year, so 2023 November, in New York Magazine. She was working for New York Magazine. And RFK Jr. claims it was a hit piece, by the way. She referred to RFK Jr. in the piece as a serial philanderer. This is when it's just going to get ironic. So she publishes this piece, refers to him as a serial philanderer, and she had interviewed him at his Californian home in Brentwood that he shares with his wife and their dogs. And she went on this hike with him. And then come the new year, piece is published in November, come the new year, this is when people are reporting, she began this relationship with him. And it was them just exchanging, I guess, graphic text messages. And so she's now been placed on leave at New York Magazine. They're saying that they are, embarrassed and that they don't like that they've lost trust with their readers. Also, her engagement has ended with Ryan Lizza. I can't imagine how embarrassing that is for him and his family. And when RFK Jr. was asked about this, he's not denying it. He says the relationship was emotional and digital in nature, not physical. So let me put that in perspective, because that's just a really, really ridiculous thing to say. It was emotional and digital in nature, not physical, as if that makes a difference. Let me put that into perspective of how compelled men are, right? Compelled men are by the physical, and the physical is being offered to them for free everywhere in society, right? And just in the way that women dress, the way what they put on their Instagram, it's like constantly the suggestive sex culture that we've created. RFK Jr. was just running for president of the United States. We have mere weeks to go until the election. He, of course, has stepped down, but he is putting his weight behind Trump. Great thumbs up, announced that he would be, at the very least, a part of his transition team. He was being floated for vice president before J.D. Vance was announced. He's got all of this going on, and yet he still cannot control himself, right? He still cannot control himself. He still cannot say, you know what? Not right now. I'm not going to give in to lust. That is how powerful of a force we are talking about. And if you think, again, that this society that we live in, they're offering you this lust because they want you to be free, you are a fool. It is to constantly enslave you. It is to constantly have blackmail for you, on you in the background. I have long thought that the relationship between RFK Jr. and Rabbi Shmuley is weird, okay? And I'm not alleging anything here. I want to be clear, but that relationship is odd. I don't know what he could possibly have in common with a rabbi that sells butt plugs and shrieks and is so clearly a lunatic. And my question is just, if you can't stop that, if you can't stop that just for a few months, can we just make it to November 7th or whenever the election is, November 5th, November 7th? I don't know. What does this say about the state of men today? Right, we are suffering a crisis of weak men, but those men have been turned weak intentionally, and the only way that we are going to turn that around is if men recognize pornography for what it is, which is a spiritual and a political weapon. All right, guys, the Biden-Harris economy has been a major burden on the average American. Wages are flat, expenses are up, and it is very hard to manage to pay all the bills without grabbing the credit cards. If you're a homeowner and you're frustrated with that cycle, I need you to make a 10-minute, no-obligation call today. You can call my friends at American Financing. Interest rates are coming down and are now in the low 5s. So if you're constantly carrying a credit card balance each and every month, the rate in the 20s, American Financing can show you how to put your hard-earned equity to work and get you out of debt. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving their customers an average of $800 a month. And if you get started today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. So call American Financing today at 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210, or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, it is comment time. Going to read your comments. By the way, some of you guys pointed out to me that you can't super chat on YouTube anymore. Yeah, that is because they demonetize me. So you can't even give me money. But if you do want to super chat, I guess you can go to locals.com and you can give whatever you can to the show, which keeps us independent so that we don't have to cry when people try to financially terrorize me into having their opinions. Sorry, built different. Not going to say whatever you want me to say because you demonetize my accounts. But we are going to cut over and we're going to read the super chats on, I don't know if they're called super chats, on Rumble. And we're going to start now only answering questions on Rumble. Really encouraging you guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, to at least take the time to go into the comment section and hit the link, or I guess it's in the description section, the little box that's under. Hit the description section and follow on Rumble, just in case I get banned from YouTube one day, so that you know exactly where you can find my content. We want to continue to build somewhere else as we are still using this platform. All right, guys, so we're going to cut the stream on YouTube, and I'm now going to answer your comments on Rumble.